Let's do this.
It's time for Hanging with Langan.
I like that she's got a big dirty mouth that gets her in trouble.
Wow.
Stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time.
Hey, you guys, it's me. It's Maureen. How are you? I've missed you. I've missed you madly. I'm excited today. Thank you for hanging with Langan. My guest today, I'm very excited. I've been waiting a while for this chap to join me. Hanging with Langan is one Mr. Malachy McCourt. I call him a raconteur, a writer, a one-time bar owner, a drinker, not one time, but a one-time drinker, a soap opera actor, a regular on the Jack Paar Show. He's a current radio talk show host, WBAI in New York City. He is a teller of tall tales and a liar too, a rebel and always a charmer. Born in Brooklyn, Malachy grew up in the slums of Limerick, Ireland, with a number of siblings, including Frank of Angela's Ashes fame. Malachy returned to the United States of America as a young man in 1952, and his shenanigans, his hijinks, are relayed in his memoir, A Monk Swimming, originally published in the 1990s when I first read it, and it's now being re-released just as he celebrates his 90th birthday. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Malachy McCourt. Hello.
Hello, my dear.
I'm so glad you could join me.
I am very glad that I can join anybody these days, particularly when you hit 90. I was born on September 20th, 1931. I have lived and seen 15 presidents.
Whoa.
Come and mostly go, as they do, as you know, they do. And as a citizen, I have been able to vote, but I have not been able to vote for any communist because there are hardly any communists on the ballot. So that should. How many of your viewers and participants will take offense at that, Maureen?
Well, for the love of God, people take offense of everything these days, Malachy.
That's
so
right,
who the hell
yeah.
knows? I mean, say anything, people take. I used the word fat in my one-person show, and I had a woman with an eating disorder corner me.
Oh,
She's
my
I'm
God.
like, I said, you got to be kidding me. Go binge and purge and get out of here. So, do you consider yourself a communist, or are you a rebel, or you just what are you? Who are you?
I'm communists are far to the right from me. I'm way left of any communist. I'm totally liberated from ideology. I couldn't follow, for example, Stalin. I couldn't be bothered with him.
No.
Trotsky, I might have been able to talk to. Fidel Castro sounded like a kind of a man that I wouldn't mind sitting down and having a pint with when I was drinking.
It'd have to be vodka.
Generally speaking, ideology, people, I tell you what really bothers me, though.
What is
conservatives.
it?
Conservatives. Can you imagine the amount here? Ireland suffered under conservative rule for 800 years. And then they get booted out in around 1922 out of the south of Ireland. But in the meantime, scads of Irish men and women emigrated to the United States. And here they are, and they are, look at the amount of people surrounding that jerk, Trump, conservatives. They are, can you imagine? But one Irish poet, Maureen, said, you eventually become the thing you hate the most. And that's what's happened with the Irish. They have moved so far to the right that they'd make you puke. But that's
I have to tell you, I know some Irish in my own world that have gone in a way that is very different to the way they were raised, the way with the working class values and pro-union. And it's shocking to me. And you hear from not just Irish immigrants, but you hear from people who have been here for a generation or two saying,
Yeah.
well, those people should come in this way. Those people should do this. I'm like, well, when the potato famine was coming, you people should have set up a smoke signal waiting, say, can somebody let me in at your convenience? People are desperate, Malachy, desperate people out there.
Yeah, well, and the way they look down on people who are, as you said, starving, hopeful people trying to get in here where they are and where they've prospered. And the way in one time, the newspapers ads used to say for the jobs, man wanted, English, Scandinavian, German, Spanish, Negro, and then it was no Irish need apply.
Right, right. How some people forget.
And they even used they just said NINA, the acronym for no Irish need apply.
I didn't
And
know that.
didn't even have to be spelled out. It was there in print. And that's the way America was then.
You know what I find, Malachy McCourt? I find that what happens is when somebody's gone through their own troubles, they go, well, I went through mine and I did it this way. Why can't that person do it this way?
Yeah.
It's not about people doing it as you would have done it or the
Right.
way you do it. People have they walk in their own shoes in their own path. So it's very interesting to me. My mother was listening to you. She was cracking me up when I was on your show on WBAI.
Yeah.
Oh, he's quite a rebel, the man, isn't he? And she was laughing. So, yes, he is, Mother. Yes, he is. I want to talk about your book. You're re-releasing a monk swimming memoir. And before we get to the shenanigans and what you share in that as a young man coming back to America from Ireland, I want you to put this in context. Your childhood in Limerick, if we can put that in some context so then people understand where you're coming from in your memoir.
Well, we, as you pointed out, I was born in Brooklyn, as was my brother Frank of Angela's Ashes. And then there were twin boys, Eugene and Oliver. And then there was the little girl, Margaret Mary. We were on this earth, Frank, myself, and the twins. Margaret Mary arrived, and we were thrilled to see a little girl among this male crowd. And Margaret Mary died as a little child. And so my mother went into a terrific breakdown, and some neighbors and friends and relatives got together and gave us the money to go to Ireland. So my father was from the north of Ireland, so we went there, and we weren't too welcome. And then we went to Limerick. And then it was there that the twins died, Eugene and Oliver, and Mike and Alfie were born. Then my father couldn't get work in Limerick, so he went to England. And he was a man rather fond of the drink. And he totally forgot about the family in Limerick. So
where was he from in the north, Malachy?
What's that?
Where was your dad from in the north of Ireland?
Tunbridge, County Antrim.
Okay.
Where they said, where Roddy Macaulay goes to die on the bridge of Toom today. That's where my father was from. And he was a great Irish patriot and so on.
Oh, I read him coming into the room and having you sing patriotic songs.
Yeah, and he wanted us to die for Ireland. He did. And so that was, so now my mother's deserted by this man. She gets relief. It was about the equivalent of $2 a week at that time. And so the rent was about 6 shillings. And then there was a 7 shillings for food and clothes and all that. So it was miserable and
Oh,
awful. And we were really deprived. And also, poverty, the difference between being poor and being poverty stricken is that it's like the difference between a bad cold and cancer. And that
oh.
was what we were in the cancer department, you might say. So we
Mm.
were many times hungry and shoes falling off, our arses out through our trousers, and in the lowest slum where there were lavatory outside our door, and there was people used to empty their buckets in there, a bunch of 8 families, and the stink and
Yeah.
everything. It
Oh
was
boy.
the whole thing was pretty horrendous, and then we went to the wrong school. And the other thing about it is that we Frank and myself had to leave school at 13. He
Oh.
left at 13, so we both did that and went to work as messenger boys and so on. Because
Oh.
that brought in the money. So I have no formal education. I never went back to school. But Frank, when we came back to America eventually, Frank went, he somehow or another finagled his way into New York University and got himself a degree and became one of the most beloved teachers at Stuyvesant High School in the
Very good.
history of that school. He wrote a book and that won the Pulitzer, as you know.
May I jump in there on that note? At the time, before he won the Pulitzer, I was at Bloomberg Television and Radio and
Yes.
doing what I'm doing now, interviews with people that interest me. And I had read his book before the Pulitzer, and I set up an interview with him. And my program director came over to me and he said, "Listen, we think authors, they're boring. I want you to cancel that interview." And I said, "What?" I said, "Okay, how about this? Let me do the interview. I think I can connect with the Irish background, and give me that opportunity. And if you don't like it, you don't have to air it." I
Yeah.
have an interview with Frank. He wins the Pulitzer. As soon as he does, my program director comes over and he says, "Maureen, that interview, we'd like to replay it now." I go, "Oh, you mean the one you didn't want me to do? That one? The one you wanted me to cut? Oh, you mean that one? Whose instincts you didn't trust? That one?" He's, "All right, just shut up and we'll replay the interview." But I think,
You wouldn't let up on him. Good for you.
oh, ever. Am I still on it? I'm still on it, Malachy. I still haven't given up on it. But I think what I take away from what you're saying and from what Frank said, and you have very vastly different personalities, I come from a big family, but you cut
Yeah.
out the same cloth, just different parts of the cloth. How people treat the poor, just the dishonoring them of their humanity. That's what resonates for me. Just the lack of humanity to the least among us. That's what troubled me
Yeah.
when I read that.
Well, that's part of the disease of poverty is the deprivation, the social deprivation, and the lack of, generally speaking, you can't get an education. Now, it's in the introduction, you also said that I'm a liar, and I have often boasted about that I'm one of the best liars in America. But people have said to me, "You're a terrible liar." I am not. I'm a great liar. I'm so practiced at it. I'm the best. And there it is. Because I have lied. I have taught. I have authored and assembled 10 books because I was able. The thing that saved our asses was the coming of the library to Limerick, and that was the reading, the omnivorous, and insatiable thirst for the word and the language. And so you begin to then you get, I can't, for example, I do not know anything about grammar because I thought that a dangling participle was some sort of a sexual activity, but and I still don't know what it is, but nouns and verbs, nouns I know about, verbs I don't know. And, but that's the aspect of it. What I don't know is incalculable, but I have gotten my way. I have lied my way through so many things, and that people think I've had radio shows. I had a television show on Channel 9, and as you know, I was an actor,
I
and
do know
for
that.
60 years, and
And I want
so
to get
you acquire. All you have to do is acquire a very good relationship with the language, and it will get you where all over the place.
And I will tell you this about language and words. I love them myself, but
Yes,
I
you do.
feel you don't have to. In my experience, certain people, it's a music. It's the music within them. They just
Yes,
know it. It's lyrical. You don't have to know if it's a damn preposition or the object of the preposition. You
yes.
just have to feel it. And I just think that's a natural thing. And I think many Irish have that. It's just it's a rhythm. It's a music internally that comes out through words.
Well, the Irish had the benefit, of course, of the background of our own language, the Gaelic language, which is an extremely poetic language. I learned some when I was at the national school, but not. I couldn't retain it. But again, the grammar is extremely difficult. But having that, in a way we were bilingual, and also in Ireland, in Limerick, in the slums, we never had enough to eat. And my mother used to go down to the dispensary where they gave welfare, a couple of dollars a week. It was 13 shillings and sixpence a week was what we got. And every month we got 5 shillings from St. Vincent de Paul, would give us 5 shillings, and we go to a little shop and get some extra bread, extra tea, and
Yeah.
some milk. But it was so uh, in depriving
Yeah, deprivation. That was the word I was going to use.
deprivation it was, and
Terrible.
and the again the social abhorrence of us, because when we go to mass, for
Yeah.
example, as we did, because you had to do that there, that at that time. They kept an eye on you in the school and everything. They
Oh, yes,
insisted you
yes,
go,
yes, yes, yes.
and they beat hell out of you if you didn't go. And on Sunday, we go to us, and as kids, you go and get Holy Communion. So that meant marching up to the altar rails, but we couldn't go straight up because when we knelt down, everybody could see that our arses were out through our trousers and that we had holes in our shoes. So we had to kind of push our way over to the right and way to the left where people couldn't see our footwear. Our,
Shame, shame.
and of course they're all extremely well dressed, and so many of the Irish emigrants try to they become terribly British as well, you know. Oh no, how nice to see you. So, you eventually become the thing you hate the most, as A.E. said, the Irish poet, and that would be part of the life there. And it makes you, it sours the soul,
Oh,
and it makes the deprivation. You wonder as a child, why it, why don't they like me? Why are they why are they so nasty to me?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a total dislike of poor kids. The other thing too was we had no lavatory of our own. We had to go. We had the one outside the door, and we had no bathroom. We had a little tap inside. That was it. So we'd wash our for the whole winter. We never had a bath of any sort. And when the summer came, then of course we, as much as possible, we would lip into the local river, and that's
Sure.
how we got washed in the summer, and we stayed dirty for the winter and the spring. But
It's interesting when you talk about all this, because my mom is from Ireland and she's from Cavan, but her family owned land. They owned the land. So when you own the land, they weren't like, they weren't wealthy. She's one of 10, but
Yeah.
you have animals, you have a farm, you have land. My father's parents, they didn't finish 6th grade, one 8th grade, one 6th. And my grandfather was a tenant farmer. And you see when you go back where he lived outside of Mullingar, and you're just thinking, I read letters that he wrote home, and just, I don't know if it was to the extent of your poverty, but the pain you feel in that people, the lack of opportunity, just the lack of it, so desperate to have to leave and go somewhere. And he came here to be a longshoreman, and that was a better life than what he had there. And then you think about, I think a big thing for me with education, Malachy, is I was on the train with a fellow, went to Cornell, nice young man, we were chatting, and he said, well, I just think if people can't afford college, then maybe they shouldn't go. And I said, now here we go, sir. I said, there we go, there's the chasm. I said, education is essential. Having a state school or a community college is what, I was the first to go to college. My siblings, because it was affordable. Now a state school being $50,000 a year. That's why I'm with Bernie Sanders with community colleges. You have to have an educated population, one, for people to work, and two, to be even competitive on a global market. It's just common sense that people should be educated. So I get insane about that.
And encouraged to seek it.
Yes.
And let them make it, and it should be available as well. And that's why the colleges should be free. Public education is absolutely essential.
I agree.
There's no doubt about it.
Now, I have a question for you from one of our watchers right now. And again, you are a teller of tall tales. So Molly is asking, she was the romper room lady back in the day at Channel 9 in Secaucus. I worked in Secaucus in Channel 9. That was my first television job. She wants to know, did you really work at Channel 9, or is that one of your fibs?
I did, yeah. I had a show there. I had a television show there.
Do tell, when? What was it called?
It was called the Malachy McCourt Show, and it was on sometime in the 60s. That was it, yeah. And
there you go, Molly.
My first two guests were Sean Connery and Richard Harris.
Really?
And then I did Apollo Dwyer, who was the borough president. No, he was the president of the council. And I did an hour with Muhammad Ali at the time.
You did?
Yeah, he was. It was in the 70s, because that's when he was barred, when they took his title away.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought, and he was not, everybody was glowering at him. And I just pursued him to come on my show, because that's who I wanted.
You mean how I pursued you, like that? You mean how Maureen Langer pursued Malachy McCourt? I was like a phone call away from a restraining order. Like, when are you coming on my show? I am honored you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
Molly says she recalls your picture on one of the walls.
At Channel 9?
That's what she's telling me.
Yeah, I think they had one there. Yeah, that was it. Isn't that amazing?
Joe Franklin was there for a long time. He was there when I was there.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
I think he was born there.
Born and died there, rest his soul. So what I want to ask is if you would stay with me and do a part 2 of Hanging with Langan, because we want to get into your book, A Monk Swimming, and re-release of your memoir. And those of you watching and listening, you can send your questions or comments. And of course, let everybody know this is going to be on all the .coms and all the podcast platforms. So please subscribe to Hangin' with Langan on Apple Podcasts. You can see all the video and Spotify, iHeart. You can also watch all the videos at Patreon. And that's where you support the show if you're so inclined. Think of it as like public television, but for Maureen Langan. And you can go to, I'm telling you, this is what it is. I should have a one-eyed dog and a tin cup at a street corner. So go to patreon.com/Maureen Langan if you're inclined to support the show. And it's subscriber based. You get all the videos and all little treats and all that stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a part 2 with Malachy. I'm going to edit this, you guys who are watching. But what I will do here is do the opening music again.
Yeah.
And away we go. Please stand by.
Let's do this.
It's time for Hangin' with Langan.
I like that she's got a big dirty mouth that gets her in trouble.
Wow. Stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time.
Okay.
Maureen Langan here, Hanging with Langan. Welcome. Part 2 of my riveting conversation with writer, teller of tall tales, one-time bar owner, everything, author of A Monk Swimming, just re-released or about to be re-released, Malachy McCourt. Thanks for hanging with me. Malachy.
Here I am, Maureen.
Here I am, Maureen. You crack me up. I want to get to the book. We talked about in part 1 your childhood, the poverty, some of your background, and what precipitated, the issues of deprivation. So let's talk about A Monk Swimming. You come back to America. You're born in Brooklyn, grow up in Limerick, Ireland. You come back to the United States, I believe, in 1952.
Right.
And you take New York by storm. You are quite the boisterous man about town. You get by on charm times 1,000. I mean, the book, I can't even believe the things I'm reading. I'm like, and we're going to get to some of those. I'm like laughing aloud. Talk about A Monk Swimming, the time period that it covers.
I will. First of all, I tell people what the title comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that from the prayer, very well known to Catholics, the Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou amongst women. And when I was a kid, as you know, we mishear things.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it said, instead of amongst women, I thought it said a monk swimming. And that's called a mondegreen. It's a new word in the English language, which was coined by a woman poet, because we all mishear. Right? I led the pigeons to the flag, and the kids say for the Pledge of Allegiance, and lead us not into Penn Station, many people say, and so on. And so that was
that's the title.
That's what I thought.
I used to wonder if the Corinthians were like the Fallopians. All right. Just wondered.
So Frank wrote, my career started, I got a job as a dishwasher, of course, when I arrived. I met some people I came on the boat, the America, and I got a job as a dishwasher. And then I went in the service for a while, and I wandered into a theater one night, and they were doing some Irish plays, and I thought, Jesus, it'd be great to be an actor. So I left the theater and walked down at 60th Street, Theater East it was, and I made a U-turn and went back in, and there was a guy putting up some posters. So I said, who's the boss here? Well, he said, if you're looking for the producer, I am. So it was a guy named Dermot McNamara, and I said, could I join your group? I thought it was like you did amateur theater. You joined up. I didn't realize, it's a professional off-Broadway theater.
Uh,
But in any case, he said, do you have any experience? Oh, I said I wouldn't need it. I'm Irish. And he, he said, so he said, you have pictures. I said, I have a picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in my wallet, autographed. So anyway, I couldn't resist saying rubbish like that.
Love it.
But anyway, he asked me to come back and read for them, and I did. And then
I just love that you just had this. I'm walking through the door. This is what I want to do.
yeah,
And I love that you tease him about what picture you have.
yeah,
I'll tell you a quick aside. My sister had to go. Anyway, we were at Columbia. She had a graduate class, and it was Shakespearean scholars. She's not one. She just had to go to this thing. It was required. So I come from my stand-up. I'm in a pink top and boots, and I get in the elevator, and this man with the tweed and the loafers, he's a Shakespearean scholar, just like that. And he says to me, I beg your pardon, are you a scholar? I said, no, but I'm very, very smart. My sister said, please, Maureen, please don't get him going.
modestly.
But, you have these people, like, it's so, anyway, it just makes me laugh to needle. So I appreciate that. So what I love is that you had this sense of self, this boisterous self that just walked in and said, I want to be a part of this acting company. And you start doing plays with them.
And then a fellow named Tom O'Malley. Oh, yes, I used to go around the corner to a bar. And so this guy, Tom O'Malley, was on the, he was a booker for the Tonight Show. So when I went into this bar, I used to bring the audience with me. And the guy that owned it said, if you're going to bring those people in here, you better get behind the bar. So that's how I got to be a bartender. O'Malley got taken with some of my yarns. So he put me on the Tonight Show with Jack Power.
Was he a customer that you met there? Or did he own the bar?
Customer, yeah. I didn't own the bar, no. So that's how I got on the Power Show. So the Tonight Show, and all of a sudden I go from this unknown immigrant I landed with 40 cents in my pocket, and then all of a sudden I'm famous. And people would stop me on the street about how funny I was. And the thing about it is, the first time I was on, I drank so for courage, and I was quite half looped by. And I thought you had to do that. But that was my career with the Tonight Show.
But people need to know the Tonight Show. That's Jack Parr was the original, I believe, right?
Steve Allen was.
Steve Allen. Okay, yeah. Steve Allen was the original.
Jack Parr succeeded him. Yeah.
All right. And
this was a huge audience all across the country.
You think?
Parr was famous.
So you get this celebrity in New York. You just work your way into being an actor. You go to a bar. You have this bigger than life personality. You're telling tales. They bring you on the Jack Parr show.
Behind the bar. This guy sees me and so forth. Then two guys come into the bar one night and they say, "How about opening up your own bar?" I said, "Okay." So we opened up the first singles bar in New York, Malachys, 3rd Avenue. And then 63rd Street. That was the beginning of that. And then Malachys 2, and then a whole bunch of bars. And then and the guy that had only come back on Sunday to read for the Irish players, the Irish play, I got into that. And then all of a sudden I'm swimming in celebrity.
And you were, but what I'm reading too in this book, you were a big celebrity, a big man about town. People wanted to be around you, the sense of fun coming into Malachys, the Barbizon for women across the street, women coming in finally to the bar, because prior to that, women were not allowed to sit at the bar. Right. At least people think they're prostitutes. Right. Yeah. However, what's interesting to me, and I wanted to get to this too, is that is part of who you are, of course, that big, charming, boisterous man. But the amount you would drink, there's a scene in your book, a monk swimming, that where you're downing a bottle, I don't know, of whiskey or, on a dare,
Yeah.
and I have to wonder because then you spent the summer in Fire Island, and I have to wonder underneath. Of course, we're not one thing, as your brother said in Angela's Ashes. We can be a shamrock with different sides of ourselves,
Yeah.
and two can be, one can be love, one can be fun, but the other can be pain. And I wonder how much of this personality. I have no doubt you would have been a boisterous, fun person regardless of the deprivation. But I wonder how much of the deprivation fueled that over-the-top drinker and partier and man.
Well, behind it all, Maureen, was this fear that of poverty again, that it may overtake me here, and I would be dropped into nothingness.
An abyss.
And so this was I had to keep moving, and then I indeed became alcoholic. I mean, that incident you talked about, I drank a bottle of whiskey one night, and celebrating somebody's birthday, and somebody said, "I'll bet you $100 you couldn't do that again." And I drank another bottle. Now, I should be dead because you can't drink that amount of whiskey and live. But I did.
Apparently you can.
And here I am, I'm 90 as of last week. But I lived. And then I...
When did you stop drinking, Malachy? Excuse me. When did you...
36 years ago.
And what precipitated, was it one day? Was it something, a major incident, or was it just, I'm tired of this? What?
Just what am I doing, And I wrecked one marriage. I was married to Diana, and I was for 19 years. She was very patient, but I think her patience was wearing thin. So I just decided this is it. So I've been married. I'm still married. We are married 56 years, and I'm very happy because I love her. She's a marvelous woman and most beautiful mind and great sense of humor and all of that. So and I love her.
I love hearing that. So how was your life? Explain to people, let me just let people know that I'm speaking with Malachy McCourt. This is part 2 of our chat. He's re-releasing, he just turned 90, his memoir, A Monk Swimming. A Monk Swimming. Get that if you can. It's really, it's an amazing book. And he is out there. He's going to tell you the truth. There's no BS in that. What is life like drinking and then not drinking for a man who had a lot of drink in him?
It was drinking alcohol to excess. It leads you go seeking the unattainable. You don't quite know what you want. It's a life. It's puzzled and it's misdirected. It is alcoholism, of course, is an addiction, and no matter how much you drank, it wasn't enough. And that's it. And then you go to bed and you wake up, you have a horrendous hangover, and you wonder, what did I say? What did I do last night? Where was I? I mean, I did things when I was getting the first divorce, I did crazy things. I didn't end up, but I did. I smuggled gold to India. I did make 6 trips. And at that time, Americans were not supposed to possess bullion, it was against the law. And here am I carrying all this gold into India. And had I been caught, it would have been 5 years in jail. But that would have been, it meant death because Westerners do not survive Indian jails. So that it was. So I did that for about a year.
Wow.
6 times, back and forth, back and forth. And there it was. That was one of the things I describe in Among Swimming, and
Yeah.
those trips and the insanity of that.
But it is insane. It's totally insane. But I guess you're not having your right mind about you, your wits. But you do have to tell this one story. It's insane, but it is funny, but it's insane about the coat check. When they insisted you check, please tell that story. It's so insane.
I used to go around various places. Anyway, so it was winter time, and I had a car belonging to a friend named Hugh McGill, and I was returning it. So I drove over to the east side, and he said to meet him at this. It was a very fancy restaurant, really. So I parked the car and got out of and put the coat, my overcoat on, and went back in, went into this bar. And so I went up to the bar. McGill hadn't arrived yet, so I said, "I'll have a double Irish whiskey, please." And he said, "Would you please check your coat?" I said, "No, I won't be staying long," and so on. Sir, he said, "You have to, it's policy of the house that you have to check your coat." I said, "I don't want to check my coat."
No, stupid
"Well,
rule.
I can't serve you then." "Oh," I said. So I went back out to the car, fuming, and then I took off the coat, and I took off my jacket and my shirt and my t-shirt and my trousers and my underwear, and I put on the overcoat, and I went back in to the bar. So as I went in, I went up to the bar, and he listened. He said, "I told you, I don't want you. I can't serve you unless you should check the coat." I said, "Okay, get the hat checker." So he called her down to the bar, and she said, "Check your coat, sir." I said, "Certainly." So off the coat came, and there I am, stark naked, in the middle of the bar. Well, the screams and the outrage and the upsetness of things being laid down on the table and everything, and the bartender leaps over the bar, and he goes, he didn't know what to do. I mean, what do you do with a naked man? And she's standing there with the coat absolutely paralyzed, holding it up and hadn't moved. And so all these and the people came out of the kitchen, and the cooks and everybody, and people are all milling around me, and they pushed me out into the street, totally naked. And there I am, standing in the middle of the sidewalk with, New Yorkers passing by. And
Oh my God, and you're naked.
yeah, they're just going around. "Oh, there's another naked man."
Another naked. What bar was this, Malachy? Do you
I have
recall?
no idea. I can't remember. It was a restaurant. It was a fancy restaurant. It wasn't really a bar.
Oh
But
Lord.
anyway, I'm standing there naked with people passing me by. And so I thought I have to get my coat. So because I had put my keys of the car in the overcoat pocket, you see.
Yes.
So then I opened the door and I went in. She's still standing there, paralyzed. And I went to grab the coat from her, and she collapsed on the floor. And
He's back. He's back. Help me. There's a penis. There's your dangling participle. There it is, Malachy. Oh my goodness.
I grabbed the coat anyway.
And ran.
I'm dragging it out, and she's holding on to it. And she comes out the door with me, and they think now that I'm assaulting her, but she won't let go of the bloody coat. But finally, she did, and I ran down the street with the coat, got the keys out, and jumped in the car and drove off.
You're out of your mind.
So that was my naked.
Your naked man.
My nakedness. Yeah.
This is one of the many stories in Malachy McCourt's book, A Monk Swimming. Somebody's asking this question, was there and I'm sure you get asked this often, was there a sibling rivalry between you and Frank because of the writing or just in general?
Not at all. Frank was always more. Frank went back to school. Frank got degrees. He was well educated. He was a great, beloved teacher and a great man. I loved his mind. He had a lovely, he had a great sense of humor, and he laughed at all my escapades, and we got along very well. I miss him dearly. I loved him. I loved that man. He was just one of the grandest human beings. No, there was no. But when he got Angela's Ashes published, that was the only reason I got published. Somebody came to me and said, John Weber, who's republishing Monk Swimming.
Mm-hmm.
John Weber was the one that suggested I write a book, that he thought I could write a book. I didn't think I could, because I had never put a pen to paper. 66
Really?
years old, yeah, I'm 66. And then all of a sudden I'm writing, and I couldn't wait to see what I had to say next, because it was like when I was on the radio with the WMCA for 7 years doing talk shows, I was just enamored of myself. I couldn't get over myself. All my talk, listening to myself, laughing and having a great time.
Well, they say that writing is just thinking and thoughts and stories just manifested. You just take them and put them in words, and you have that in you. Your stories are very funny and honest and poignant, different styles. But what I love is you come from a family. I'm from a big family. There's enough for each person to have success.
There is, yeah. Alfie wrote books, and Mike went to California, and he became one of the most beloved bartenders in San Francisco when he died there a few years ago. And he got the obituaries were front page in San Francisco papers.
I had read about his obituary.
And they said there are no celebrities in San Francisco except for Mike McCourt. What a compliment.
I had read his obituary. I don't know if I was doing it in research or was at the time, because I don't know when he passed. But what bar was he at? Do you recall?
Bunch of bars. He went from bar to bar to bar. He was so popular that wherever he went, crowds followed him.
What year did he pass, Malachy?
It was about 6 years ago.
Because I was doing my one-person show out in San Francisco, daughter of a garbage man, and I recall reading about that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you too, when is A Monk Swimming being re-released?
I think it's next week, about 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
All right, so soon in October. Yeah. I have to tell you, you probably don't recall, and that's okay, but I recall when I first met you, and I first met Frank and a group of writers and troublemakers and pontificators at Eamon Gordon, the first Fridays Club. So first Friday of every month, a group would meet at Eamon Doran's around the block. That's right. Around the block from my apartment. And I remember a wonderful woman I worked with at Bloomberg named Mary Tierney would invite me to join. And she said, but we have to sit at the ladies' table. I don't know if it's the Rosary table, the Mary table, the Lady of Mary. I go, but I want to hang out with the guys. Can't we hang out with the guys too? Like, can't we hang out with them too? I want to hang out with them. All of us, And I just remember watching. And then years went by, and I would say about 5 years or so, we used to meet at Rosie O'Grady's. You would meet regularly, and I would pop in on occasion, and I just would take it in and watch and enjoy it.
Well, the first Friday Club came from I bestowed the name of it because it was when we were kids. If you went to Mass and Communion for 9 First Fridays, you were guaranteed not to die without a priest. And I said, if you do 9 of our first Fridays, you're guaranteed to die with a bartender in attendance. That was mine. That it was.
Oh, I love it.
We can never get over the religion. It's somehow or another. It impregnates our souls when you're brought up Catholic like that.
My mother always says to me, because I like to go hike or run, and my mother's always like, "You're hopping, jumping, and skipping instead of going to mass. What are you, a heathen, a pagan?" I said,
Yeah.
"Why did they get such a bad name? They were hopping, jumping, and skipping without the guilt. That's all. That's the only difference. Why can't we hop, jump, and skip?" So anyway, what do you think? And before I let you go, and I know you've done a lot in 90 years. And what do you think is the most important accomplishments that you've had so far in your lifetime?
Well, one is, if it's not too much. I wouldn't call it an accomplishment, but the fact that how fortunate I was to meet Diana and marry her. That is, she's the light of my life, and she keeps me going. I mean, right now I am. I broke my leg in March, and I was told I couldn't stand on it for 6 weeks. So I was in bed, lying in a rehab over there on the east side,
Boy.
and so I'm still not able to get out of bed by myself and walk. So I'm essentially, I feel like I'm paralyzed because I have to be helped up now to
Really?
do everything. Yeah. So that's, I'm in bed now, and that's talking to you, and you could get being helpless like that could make you feel hopeless. But the only thing is that that I have to keep going, and I mean, I'm not. I think I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm trying to write another book, and it's even the subject of it is eluding me. But I'm just sit down and write it. That's it. And of course, I write longhand because I can't type. But I'm still. I have had 10 books published now, and I can't get over that. I mean, I'm astonished at that. I wrote a history of Ireland, and that came out well. Wrote the history of Danny Boy, 3 memoirs, and I put together a collection of Irish literature and stuff like that. But we can all do it, Maureen. It is a thing we should do. We should. It's one. If I wish I had the proverbial dollar for every time somebody has said to me, one of these days I'm going to sit down and
Yeah.
write a book.
Mhm.
Well, come on. It's first of all, you don't have to sit down. Ernest Hemingway stood, and he wrote a book standing, so you don't have to stand. You don't have to start with sitting down there.
Just stand and friggin'
Yeah.
write. Shut up and write. Right?
Get your pen and get on with it, and that is it. And
I was about. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just say, never judge your material because you will always find it guilty. Just enjoy it. That's what I say.
I got a book I ordered through because it wasn't currently in print about So You Want to Write. I forget the exact name of it, but it was a woman who was teaching writing in the 1920s and really
Yeah.
telling everybody what you said. And I just ordered it online. It comes to me, and in it, it had the name. It wasn't to me. It was back in the day, Maureen's book. It
Yeah.
said Maureen's book on the inside. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like these things that happen. I was going to let you go and say goodbye, but I did have one more thing to ask you that I forgot to ask. You were saying what a great country America is when a man like you who came from nothing can get sued for $1 million.
Oh,
What
yeah.
you said something on a talk show and somebody sued you, I believe, for libel. Can you just tell
Yes.
that story?
Oh, there was a guy at the bar that I worked in, with Clavins. There was a guy named Buddy Lewis, used to play the piano there. And his father was on the radio at the time, and he was a right wing. commentator named Fulton Lewis. And so Buddy was, he was constantly making anti-Semitic remarks.
Wow.
And I was on a show with, it was Mike Wallace, just, he wasn't even on. He wasn't, that time he was no big deal. And he said, well, how about the people in that bar you work? I said, they're all good. I said, he said, sons of famous people. Yeah, I said, one guy, he plays the piano there. He's the son of Fulton Lewis Jr. What's he like? Said Mike Wallace. Oh, I said, he's okay, but he's anti-Semitic. And because he said that he would put all the Jews in the middle of the Sahara Desert and drop a bomb on them. That was it.
Oh.
No, I
Well,
thought that's anti-Semitism.
You think?
Yeah. So anyway, I said that on the Mike Wallace show, and so Lewis, his father, lost a bunch of sponsors off his radio show because of that, and he blamed me. Of course, he was quite right. He did lose it because of that. So anyway, he sued me for $1 million. And I said I didn't have it. So, but anyway, so we negotiated what we're going to do about this. With I had to, because the station, I said that on. I forget what it was, but the station I said it on anyway. Their lawyers were talking to me, so they said, "Well, what are we going to do about it?" I said, "I don't know. What do you suggest? Would you were sorry?" You said that. Would you say that? I said, no. I said, I was sorry that I was not glad to hear that he'd lost a bunch of sponsors, but that's what happens. So they put that in, and apparently that satisfied the Lewis family.
Well, the truth sometimes hits people where they don't want it to hit them, unfortunately.
Oh, indeed, yeah.
What can you do? Listen to me, you. I am so grateful that you took this time to spend with me, Malachy.
Well, thank you very much, love. And how about your book?
Oh, it's coming. The Daughter of a Garbage Man. It's coming. I wrote the one-person show. Now I'll put it in a book.
Okay.
But I feel honored that you were with me. And you have to understand, you said you have another book in you. 90 years of stories to offer, insights to offer, a life lived, and God willing, 20 more, and you're back up and walking, because it's valuable what people have to say, and what you have to say, I cherish. So thank you.
And thank you, love, and continued good shows here. It's wonderful being here with you. You are eloquent and
Very
beautiful.
Very. Keep going.
And you have the way with the words. So,
well, my mother would say, you say nice things. She'd be like, you're good for nothing. You're going to make her head swell. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm going to say goodbye once I stop this broadcast, but I want to let everybody know my guest, Malachy McCourt. Please get his memoir re-released, A Monk Swimming, and check out all his other books too. Get those. He's done a number of them. And if you want to follow me, Maureen Langan, just follow me, MaureenLangan.com. If you want a host, moderator, or stand-up comedy show for the holidays, reach out. And if you want to support the show, please consider going to Patreon, Venmo, or PayPal. I really thank you for that. This was fabulous, says one of our wonderful viewers, Molly. And you guys, until we meet again, bye, wig.